Hello, everyone, and welcome to Streaming Alchemy. I'm John Mahoney, and on today's show, we're going to be taking a look at ways you could deliver more engaging demos, presentations, and training in general. So this is an interesting topic for a lot of reasons, and something I hopefully you'll be interested in as well. We would love to have you engage with us. So please, if you have any questions, you have any feedback for us, just enter them in the comments below in whatever portal you're viewing us from, and we'll try to get answers out to you right here on the show. So as we look at this as a subject, I think what we found is that more of us are using virtualized workflows to support the functions that we used to do more person to person over the past, say 6 months to a year. And, we're looking at ways now to find better ways to connect. So Richard, hello, welcome. And well, the technology that we have has opened up a whole range of possibilities on the technical side for how we connect. It's really still a challenge for us to connect at that personal level, to make those types of person-to-person relationships function the same way they used to in a face-to-face meeting world. So what I'd like to explore here is really how we can use some relatively inexpensive components, how you can add those to your current setup to better connect and communicate with the people that you're trying to reach out to. And so probably the place to start would be to look at what are the tools that I'm talking about that you can be adding here. And probably the first and most important one is a second screen. If you are not using a second screen, you're really sacrificing a lot of capabilities in servicing people remotely. So your screen in a virtualized world is your entire desk. It's the way you interact with the world outside. And having more screen real estate will allow you to both leverage more tools simultaneously on screen, but also have better situational awareness. So if you have people making comments, you can have those in a more prominent place, and that's always on screen. So that second screen can make a large difference. And if you look at what a lot of the production setups for people who do remote events, you'll see they have desks full of screens, because screen real estate is your palette to paint on when you're engaging externally. So the next thing, speaking of palettes, is having potentially a drawing tablet. So right now, the tool we use to interact is the traditional mouse. So you're sort of sitting here, and that's the way that we tend to do everything. And a lot of the things that we used to do in the past were things that we'd use a whiteboard or a piece of paper for. And having the ability to write on these things with a pen-like device instead of a mouse gives us a lot more control and allows us to produce something that doesn't look like scribble, because if anybody who's tried to sign their name with a mouse or something, you know how tough that can be. This gives us the control we need to better communicate in writing, in diagrams, and the other types of things we use to communicate beyond just talking to somebody. And there is actually a tool that combines both of these. There are displays that are also functioning as tablets. So you can set this up as a second display on your system, and then on this display, use a stylus to write on top of that. So that gives us that next level down of combining functionality into a single device. So of these devices, these are the three ones that actually would cost money. They're hardware devices, and even though they are not free or cheap, they are relatively inexpensive. So you can get a good business class monitor, certainly in the $100 price range. This isn't for gaming or color correction or anything like that, but for the types of business functions we'd be talking about here, you could certainly find a monitor in that space. The tablet that we talked, the writing tablet, That's available for, $30 for a small size like this, but, up to $80 for a large tablet writing surface that you can use. So definitely, in the affordable range, certainly the cost of a standard mouse that you would get. And the display tablet combination, this version here is a slightly smaller version of the one we're using. It's a 12-inch version, but this is under $200. So again, these are not cheap, but if you were looking at making the time you're spending communicating and connecting with people more effective, they may end up being a very good value for the money for you. Now, the last two things we want to talk about are actually free software. And the first one is Microsoft Whiteboard. So Whiteboard is the corresponding tool that we would be using for writing on, or whether that's through a tablet or through a display, a tablet display. This would give us the ability to write and to share that writing on screen. And it is available for Windows, but it's also available for iOS devices. So it is not available for Mac, but there are other alternatives to this, free or low cost, that you could use on a Mac that could do pretty much the same role as Whiteboard here, but definitely an excellent quality tool, and you can't beat the price. And the last thing is OBS, Open Broadcaster Software. If you're not using this for your current demos and remote training, this is definitely something you need to integrate into your workflow. It is free software, runs on Mac, runs on PC, runs, I believe, on Linux as well. So there's a pretty broad range of things you could run this on. And it's going to be the tool that we're going to be using to combine all the different sources that we want to package as part of working on training. So probably the best place to start looking at this is to go into OBS, and let's look at a sort of a simple layout that we can use here. Now, I don't want to make this a tutorial on OBS. It's something we've covered in the past and we'll probably dive into more later. But the basic model that OBS uses is you create what are called scenes. And a scene is a collection of sources. So if I have cameras and desktop captures and other types of graphics, I can combine those as sources in a single scene, create a layout for those sources, and then anytime I switch to the scene, that layout with all the sources is populated. And so if you want to switch between different layouts, you just set them up as unique scenes and switch between them all. So what we're going to be doing here at a simple level, we'll start with, let's just take two sources in. The first source we want to take in is a camera. So I have these sitting here, but I have them shut off. And the way sources in a scene work is very much like Photoshop, where you have a background source and then sources you layer on top of that. And you can use alpha channels or just scaling and sizing to let you see through those layers. And the camera we're going to be bringing in is an NDI-based camera, a PTZ optics camera that's perfect for training. And if I turn this on, you see now I have the camera sitting over there. And if I just open this up, this is just how we brought this in. We went down here and let me just show you this way. We went here and we clicked on to add a source, and we took an NDI source and picked that camera in to bring it in. So the next thing we want to do, though, is we want to now bring in our Whiteboard application. And we have Whiteboard now running on a second monitor. And this is part of the advantages we have with a dual monitor setup. So on our main monitor, we have OBS running. And on the monitor I have in front of me, which is the combined sort of tablet display, I have Whiteboard. So if I bring Whiteboard in, the way you would do that is you would go down and you'd use Windows Capture. So now that I have Whiteboard open, OBS can find that as a window, and I can capture that to bring it in to the scene. So if I were to take that, and now since we have this already, let me turn this on, you now see that it has captured the whole screen. And again, this is because this works exactly like we said in Photoshop. If there's a layer on top of another that's full screen, you don't see any layers below that. But so this is in and of itself isn't going to be very useful. But one thing you could do, which, as a simple way of combining these two, is if I were to take the whiteboard here and just crop off the side of it. So like this. Now, what I actually have is a split display where I have a fairly large segment of this display taken up with a video, so it's more personal that way. But I also have a whole section over here on the side that I can use to write, to diagram, to do anything else that I'd want that we could use as part of a conversation. The other thing that you can do, and this is a nice feature of Whiteboard, is that they have different types of tools that you can use. So say, for instance, I'm talking with somebody and we want to go and create a list of follow-ups. Now, when I'm engaging, when we're having this conversation, I'm describing something, we can be putting follow-ups here in common. So the follow-ups that as opposed to sort of going to the side and writing it down while I'm looking away from the camera, we now share this follow-up list. And if I'm missing something, or if it jogs somebody's memory of something else they could be using or that needs to be done, you have that list here now. And that can be a powerful tool. So making this, again, more interactive, more like you'd do if you were with a person in person. And I think there's a lot of value just in this. And so if you think of this more in the teaching context, so if I were a teacher and I wanted to do math, I could actually use the entire side of the display as a problem-solving space and write out the math equations and solve them with students and then engage with them through question and answer back and forth. So I think as a general model for working, this is a very usable approach. But I think that where you fall short is that you're still sort of cutting up the screen, and it's just split up as if it were, a multi-box shot. So the thinking would be, what if I could take and leverage the entire width of the screen? So let me see if I can get up here and for my whiteboard, but still have a way to see myself underneath this. And the cool thing is there is a way, and it's something a lot of people in the video space have been using, and that's Chroma Key. So the trick though is we need to Chroma Key out the background here inside of Whiteboard. So sort of changing its name to some other Chroma key color, but you have the ability to do that. So you can go in and let me click down here. So you can go in and you can go format background and change the colors. Now, unfortunately, there isn't any color here that would be sort of chroma green. So we'd probably pick a color like this fuchsia purplish color here, which will change the background to that color, and then we would go in to Chroma Key that. So let me actually just switch to another scene here. Okay. So what I could do with this is you can go in and select, let me go up here, select the whiteboard, and now you can apply a filter to this. So when I come in and say there are filters, what I want to do is go down, add a filter, and I'll go and add the Chroma Key filter. So I've already done this. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn it on. And what you'll see as soon as I turn it on is that you can see the video of me behind this. And the only things are you get to select the color you want. So you select a custom color to Chroma Key. You select the color. I turn the similarity and the smoothness way down because this is a consistent color and you don't really need to do that. But what I get out of this now is effectively a drawing space with me behind it. So you can, using different types of colors, I could draw now anywhere and do any type of thing that I want that would be useful for engaging with somebody, describing something. And this is useful. The other thing you may find is you may need to, let me clear that, you may need to turn some sort of background on the side, because if I wanted to do something in, darker color, like, putting math problems up here, you would end up having something that would be a little more visible. But still, all of the same things that we talked about can work here. So if I were to, let me clear this out, turn the background off, I could actually, while I'm doing this, put that same follow-up list here and have this sitting over to the side. So we are both now sharing this, whether the remote people and myself can see the same thing and interact. But this is only really part of what you can do. So let me go in and open up a slightly different version of this whiteboard. And let me see. So another possibility here is that, let's see, I think we lost the video here. So yep, possibly. So, okay, no, we have, okay. So another possibility we can do here is to do things where we want to work with different types of images. And the image can be a great proxy for the types of things that, oh, Stephen, hello, how are you? Good to see you here. So this can be a proxy for things that you would normally do with product demos in person. So yesterday, Jawad, how are you? Welcome from the US back to Sweden. So if you saw yesterday or 2 days ago, Blackmagic had a product demonstration where they came out and announced a whole new set of products. So what if I wanted to do something where I had people asking me questions and I wanted to be able to go over these products with them? Now, since I have something which could work over me, I could grab an image of a product, drag this out, size it up, and now as I am talking with somebody, I have now the ability to go and annotate this here dynamically. So if I wanted to talk about, okay, so we have these outputs here that are now 2, so I have multi-view as well as a program out. I have my 4 original inputs, but now I have these 4 additional ones. I could go and diagram all of this. And if I wanted to, because this is just sitting there on the screen, I can go and let me just remove some of the diagrams we put on here. I could take and move this around and then say, but I could also pull this up here. So if I wanted to point out, things that I'm doing over here that would have different effects here, I now have a whole layout where I can do this type of demo. And it's very different from what you used to do in the past, where you'd have sort of pre-canned slides that you'd go through, or maybe a couple of static pictures. Now, what you actually have pulled together is a way for you to pull objects into the space as a demo space and to leverage them any way you want, where, zooming way in. So, I have the ability to zoom in and zoom out and to move this around. So you could get into a lot of detail discussing things and still, have it a very easy interface to navigate in terms of getting everything in place for, being interactive. And I think that's the key. The key is, unlike PowerPoint or another type of static packaging, you end up being able to just sort of pull things from the side, leverage them, and then when you finish discussing them, put them away. And you also have everything you need annotation-wise to do, any type of diagramming or other stuff for things that you would normally do if you had something in hand for a live product demo. So this whole thing is really a different way to start to think about doing a presentation, where it becomes less about little boxes that are spread out and more about me and a table sort of in front of me of things that I can share, or a board beside me, just like a whiteboard in a conference room where I could write things and note things. So a very different experience overall for people for these types of demo-based productions you're doing. And there's one more thing I want to talk about regarding, Chris, nice to see you again. Thank you. One of the great things about having a whiteboard is that you can actually share whiteboard with somebody remotely. So if I just pull the mouse over here, if you notice there's this blue button here. If I click on that button, I have the ability to have a web sharing link. And so this is something where it creates a link. I can then copy that link. And when I copy that link, I could paste it. Say I had a meeting with people taking place over Zoom. I could paste that to the chat in Zoom, and other people could now share interaction with my own whiteboard here. So it would stop becoming me giving a presentation, and it could start becoming me engaging with somebody on a more tactile way, albeit remotely. And because this thing works, whiteboard is available on iOS devices like an iPad or an iPhone, you can leverage this now as a real interactive tool where when you send that link, somebody could open it on their phone and start to mark things up with you, ask questions, solve problems, do whatever you want. So a lot of possibilities here for different ways you can think about these remote presentations. And I would just treat this more as a start point. Think of the way that you could expand this to leverage video, animated GIFs, to things that you're pulling in where you want to be able to have other people upload stuff to a Google Drive that you can then use in a presentation as well. So I think for this, hopefully this just got you thinking a bit about some of the possibilities, but it would definitely be something that I think you could consider in some form adding into your demo-based, training-based productions. So that's everything that I wanted to cover for this show. Hopefully you found it interesting. And, we would love to have you hang around. We'll be hanging around after the show for a little while to answer any questions or talk about anything production related, for as long as you'd like. But if not, thank you for joining us today, and we'll see everyone tomorrow. We'll see everyone next Friday at the same time and the same social channels. So Lee, Lee Love just dropped in right before. So thank you all. I appreciate you spending the time. See you in a few if you're hanging around for the after show. All right, so this was a very interesting show to put together. So as we sort of discussed what we wanted to cover here, we definitely came back to the importance of doing, covering demos and training in a way that isn't just a rehash of sort of traditional, display models, where little corner piece where. So Chris is just asking, did you show how to add to draw on live video? So the quick answer is yes. So if you like, let me just open up. Got a simple one here, and give me a second. I'll get something set up for you here. So if I wanted to do this here, where this is basically what we were using with Whiteboard. And what we used was Chroma Key. So in Chroma Keying, we were able to remove this sort of light pink fuchsia background and see the video below that. So if I jump over to the expanded view here, what I have here basically, let me take this off the side and clear all this. No, so just give me a second here. So I now have, because I did Chroma Key, I have everything removed from the background, and just taking any of these, I can go and sort of come here and talk about what I'm doing. So it is a very straightforward way to create that sort of writing space that you'd want. And the other thing we mentioned is that if you wanted to, you could create sort of a overlay background on the side that you could also write on, which may be useful for, doing things where you'd want to do, like 24 plus 18 equals, and then solving that for a student if you wanted to have that sort of thing, while still keeping the same visual connection with your remote participant. So this was basically how we did this, and I think it's something that could certainly be effective in a lot of different scenarios. And like I mentioned in the show, it's not something where I'd necessarily look at this as, the full template. It's more ideas that you could integrate into the templates that you're using. So some of that may be annotation on top of video, where as opposed to you being the speaker, you'd want to be able to play video back through here and pause it and annotate things in that video, clear it off and keep going. So there could be lots of different approaches. So what we're doing, Lee is just asking about, are we bringing this in as a screen share? So we looked at two ways. The first way we did it was NDI screen capture, where I forget what they keep changing the name. So it used to be scan converter. Now I think it's screen converter or screen capture or something of the sort. But what we ended up using was the inside of OBS. They have a Windows capture function. And that Windows capture allows you to grab any window. And I believe that even works for windows that aren't visible. So if you had a window in the background, you could still grab that and put things over it if you needed more space to control and you just needed to discuss that window but not interact with it. So I think it gives you a ability that way. But this is also then a great way to do software demos. So if you were showing the UI of a software product and going through, sort of capturing that, you could then also capture this sort of whiteboard on top of it. And as you were going through, as opposed to always, like I know when I do demos, I'm always using the mouse and sort of trying to point people to different aspects of the UI and live to air. So this would give you a way to do that, but now with the stylus and different colors or different labels. So what we're using to do the telestration is basically this right here. It is a 16-inch XP pen. I think we got this on sale for about $350. So it sort of falls in a very reasonable price range if you can add the value to the way you communicate. So I always want to be clear because I'm not assuming that people have these massive budgets for things, but there's a lot of trade-offs when you are communicating. Some of it is time. How efficient can I be? Some of it could be success if I'm teaching. It's spending more for results is something that's always should be considered, even if it's not always possible at a given point in time. And there are different versions of this. So there is a smaller one, a 12-inch version of this, which is under $200. And there's a beautiful 27-inch version of this, which is probably about $800. So, different range of prices, but still you're basically getting the same core capabilities. So yes, everything, Jawad, everything that we are looking at with OBS would also work with Vmix. Vmix has Chroma Key, so you'd be able to do this. You can do these types of layers in a multi-view as opposed to the way it's done with scenes inside of OBS. So definitely, very, very possible to do in Vmix. And I think every one of these tools will bring their own spin and their own flavor. So this could be, this could be something where as you look at the other tools that you have, how would you want to combine them? And that's something that everybody's workflow could be different. But so I mean, I just see Lee is actually putting up there. I know Lee has if you have not checked out Lee's show and you are interested in photography, you are cheating yourself. It's a phenomenal show. And, part of what Lee does, he does reviews of people's photos. And this is not the everybody gets an award type of review. You're going to get an honest assessment from Lee. And I think that's for all of us to improve. That's what you want. So I think, this could be something that could fit very well where Lee has a photo and he wants to be able to go and highlight different types of things where, this got all the blacks were crushed here, or there's too much distraction over here, or the framing would have been better if you did this. That could be a perfect way to do that type of interaction with somebody. But again, Lee's program is phenomenal. Look him up. He's on Facebook and definitely worth your time. So, are there any other questions or anything else you'd like for us to jump in and talk about? So this was actually a lot of fun putting together. It was a little stressful because we were trying to figure out how to contextualize it in a way that would sort of show the value without being just another, let's chroma key and write, telestration. And I think, that was part of the reason we wanted to work with graphics and sort of moving them around. But hopefully that got all of you thinking. And, please, if you do something sort of great with this idea, I'd love you to share it, in the group or share it on the page so other people can see what you're doing. So everyone, Lee, thank you. This is great. I'll see you all next week then. Take care, everyone. Bye.